And that can bridge into really getting oriented around there's a mission, there's a purpose, as if there's something for you to go to accomplish. And when people connect with that, lots of good things can happen. So our coaching work, our change management work, the work that we teach is all pretty much inspired by, 3 ideas, which is your health, your money, your resources, and your sense of meaning. I would call it the 3 M's: medicine, money, and meaning.
Yeah.
And that's still very much essential to me. In fact, that was why we started the new company, and it came out of COVID. I retired twice. I've retired retirement now. I don't have any food for it. I fight. I really try.
Yeah.
And it's about the meaning. It's about the health. It's about the contribution. It's about a sense of service that drives me into this next decade.
Yeah. Welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Kooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn. Today, I'm on site in the presence of Chris Cappy, who's an entrepreneur, been a mentor, coach, really engaged in our community in the Gunnison Valley. And we're right in front of his fireplace. I'm really excited to be able to spend some time with you, Chris. I appreciate it. I know it's a busy time for you.
You're seeing me too. I just realized this. I didn't plan this, but I have my Here for Good t-shirt.
Yes.
At the Community Foundation.
Yes.
So, and I was just talking to some of those folks here this morning. So we're here for good.
Yeah. Well, you've been engaged in this community pretty in depth for a number of decades.
20 years.
Yeah. And I've heard your story in the past, and for our listeners, can you give us a little summary? Where did you grow up?
Rochester, New York, right on the lake. And it was a pretty gray, dismal place weather-wise, but it was probably a good place to grow up.
Yeah.
Like many people say, it was a great place to be from. And again, sunny Colorado, I think. But if someone is really SAD diagnosably, I might be that person, because whenever I go back to cloudy places, and when I first saw the Rockies, and I was also in France, seeing the light and the quality of life, I was like, oh, turn the lights on.
Yeah.
So I've been solving for sunny places since I was about 21.
Yeah.
And
how'd you end up in the Gunnison Valley?
Wow, what I prefer to think I haven't ended up yet.
Yeah.
There was when in the early 80s, I mean, this is a shape to me. Where I grew up, my father died young. My father's death was a hard death. He had a bad accident. He lived for 10 years and kind of became a crazy person because he had a head injury and he was in a coma. So I kind of grew up that way. So I was a martial arts student. He died when I was 14. And I took off, and I decided I would seek first the kingdom, whatever that meant. I just knew I was angry. I had to make myself more right with myself. I started at a martial arts mat. Somehow, magically, that led me through a series of connections to Montana, to Helena, Montana, where I helped found a martial arts training center. It's still there today. It's really the yoga today, feathered pipe ranch, like peace pipe, smoke cat pipe. And while I was there, I kind of became the director of the place, and I was hiring people to present. And that I hired a guy named Amory Lovins, who was kind of well known for his work in energy conservation. And that Amory wanted to start his institute, and we had a good connection. And he asked me if I would help found his institute. It was either going to be in Washington, D.C., or it was going to be in Aspen, Colorado. And it turned out to be in Aspen, or close to Aspen, in Old Snowmass. And I got a telegram from Amory when I was in India for 4 months studying meditation, saying, would you do this? And when he said Aspen, Colorado, I said, sure. So I came back, and while I was in Aspen and while we built Rocky Mountain Institute, I hiked over to Crested Butte. So I knew that there was a place called Crested Butte. And then when I left the Institute and I worked for 4 years with Boston University. We were kind of the first kids on the block using the outdoors for team building and adventure activities, challenge activities for team building. And I kind of rolled into that because I was running a facility. I was a teacher of martial arts. I knew what it took to have good presenters and good curriculum. And I was able to package all that. And I got a teaching position with the School of Management, and BU had a 1,000-acre facility about 90 miles from Boston up in the woods of New Hampshire. And I and 4 other people as entrepreneurs built it into a training facility for team building. And people know about this now, but at the time this was kind of new.
Yeah.
Using experiential activities. And our first clients were substantial clients pretty early on were General Electric, Morgan Bank, and Walt Disney. And that was amazing. And they really took to what we were doing because we won some awards and we were stripping away the titles and the positions and just focusing on challenge and behaviors that worked and behaviors that didn't. And that was around leadership, it was around teaming. There was a lot of things that got loaded onto these experiences. And that GE in particular was interested in this. So we built a version of this for GE on their campus outside of New York City. And that was the beginning of a long series of pieces of work we did with individual development, with team development, and with organization development, because it all blended together. So that's been my work for 35 years, 40 years with Pilot Consulting, which is one of our companies. And then we have another company that we started in the last 2 years called Impactful Advisors, and that think impact with them.
Yeah.
And that goes to the heart of who I am, because I care about people and I care about results. I care about both deeply. So when I look back, if I looked at the shape of that story to give you a net summary, wherever you want to go with this, the seek first the kingdom idea is important for people. The why you're here is important for people. The 2 most important days of your life, in our view, my view, is the day you're born and the day you figure out why you're here. And that can bridge into really getting oriented around there's a mission, there's a purpose, as if there's something for you to go to accomplish. And when people connect with that, lots of good things can happen. So our coaching work, our change management work, the work that we teach is all pretty much inspired by, 3 ideas, which is your health, your money, your resources, and your sense of meaning. I would call it the 3 M's: medicine, money, and meaning.
Yeah.
And that's still very much essential to me. In fact, that was why we started the new company, and it came out of COVID. I retired twice. I've retired retirement now. I don't have any feeling for it. I tried. I really tried.
Yeah.
And it's about the meaning, it's about the health, it's about the contribution, it's about a sense of service that drives me into this next decade.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for the summary.
Hey everybody, this is Luke from Kooler Garage Doors. Just want to take a quick second to talk about our sponsor, Sommar Garage Door Openers. In our opinion, Sommars are the highest quality product on the market today. We recommend them for all of our residential garage door installs because of the variety of features they include, such as Wi-Fi connectivity and safety features such as a fixed chain, which moves along a secure rail to ensure your garage door opens quietly and safely. Click on the link in the description to learn more about Sommar Garage Door Openers.
What's bubbling up is, I think of you as a leadership guy, and we've known each other for a number of decades. Like I mentioned earlier, you've been a mentor of mine and been gracious enough to sit down and have conversations and go into depth. When you're working with organizations or individuals, what do you think are the components that you're bringing in that nobody else can?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, everybody, there's lots of consultancies and lots of advisors, and they're all, and many of them are good. I think our role is better, faster execution. Our go-to-market is we can cut through a lot of the complexity, and that we talk about this, we've transacted hundreds of engagements in I've been in 40 plus countries. So it's taken us to many different regions.
Yeah.
The work we did with IBM required us to prove that we had a cross-culturally valid problem-solving methodology. And that, the big ideas would be, we need to get results, print money. We needed to drive messages of change, which were often required because it's continuous in terms of the competitive environments and the dynamics. And then we had to build capability. So one of the core capabilities, if you talk about leadership, is self-leadership. And a lot of the what worked and what didn't work, or what worked really well, we trace the three things. So we transact these hundreds of meetings. So strategy, which is what are you going to do, which is an adaptive response to whatever it is the environment is. Leadership, which is usually enrolled to figure out what is it that we need to be doing. You're on the hook, paid the usually big bucks to make some bets, which is what is at the heart of strategy. Leadership has to help figure that out. And then execution, which is the third big one, which is getting it done with and through other people. And a lot of these places are complex, rich environments that breed complexity, and they don't mean to, but it's just what happens in large corporations or businesses, even in small business. It can be a small business, and it can be very complex too.
It's amazing how complex.
So it's like, wow, this should be simple. It never is. But that's what I'm heading at. If we're different, we're here to simplify things. And that the more we can speak in the vernacular of what's common, the more we can get people quickly to talk about what's real with candor, and the more we can simplify it and help people see a way through. That's one of, I think, our gifts, and that's one of our observations from doing this as long as we have. And it's definitely some of the feedback we get from our clients right now. We're doing with the impactful advisors, we're doing a piece of work with Ascension Healthcare. That's 140 some odd hospitals that managed to somehow in this environment lose a couple $1 billion last year. And there's reasons for that. You may, all of those idiots, it can be that too, but it's not that in this case. It's just the bad bets that were made perhaps before COVID, then COVID hit, and they were really in a hard place. And I know this anybody who's listening or watching this will sound like, can't get it, kidding me. The biggest thing they said to us is, you're so different than, we've had some major name consultancies, that McKinsey and Bain and a few other ones. They said, you're really different. You guys seem like you really care, and you're getting us to really talk to each other, and you're going for this. And that speed and that idea that a lot of the answers are in this system. So you can hire expert consultants who will come in and give you a report and talk to people and charge you a lot of money and make sure that you get back your report, because they're the experts that will tell you what you need. Then our go-to-market is a little different. For years, we've always observed that the answers are right there in the system. People know a lot about what needs to change within the systems. They might need a little bit of expertise. They might need a little bit of help. They might need a little bit of benchmarking on where are we in the game industry in those data sets, but those aren't that hard to get. So we look at facilitation, hardball facilitation around a methodology that helps solve problems, to drive people through, that's coherent, that has a logic path that helps people to understand the why. Why are we going to do this? Where is it supposed to take us? Who's it going to be involved? What are the things that are specifically that we would measure so that we were making progress? And last but not least is, how will we do this? Well, a lot of that is how you engage people to feel like they own it. And so getting people to really talk to each other in meaningful ways about what's really happening is not that hard to do, but it's not often what people's experiences are with when they hire the consultants to come in. And some of it's the consultant's problem, and they think they're there to tell them. But a lot of it is, no, we're there to have you talk to each other. So, and we're pretty smart. After you do this for hundreds of times and you have a track record of hundreds of business issues across the world, you see business is pretty simple, the hard. Yeah. So sometimes you're reminding people of things that they already knew, but they got into the complexity, they got into the weeds, and they need to lead their way out. And they need each other to lead their way out. You don't do this alone. We need each other. That's a core message. We're here for good. We're here for each other. It's the community foundation of the Constant Valley, my best organization for doing things for so many different entities in the not-for-profit world in this valley. I mean, this is really our united way. We don't have a united way.
That's right.
But and that gets into the bigger idea too, that if you really help people see where they are in the game and their lives, work is precious moments of life on earth, trying to keep move over your heads, keep the family going in the right direction and the kids healthy and happy, and you're trying to do good things. You're here for good. So we have it that our message is you're here to give and you're here to grow for anybody. Start there. You're here to grow or you're here to give, because the more you grow, the more you have to give. The more you give, interestingly, the more comes back to you in terms of what you learn and how you're recognized and how you're energized by the work that you do. And you do that with gratitude. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
When I was in India, we used to have this thing. I mean, Miss India was a big thing for me. I didn't know it as much at the time. I was going to learn how to meditate, unbundling this thing of probably the anger that I had as a teenager from what I grew up with as a kid. My father's poor circumstances for the cards my family was dealt to play, what has residuals, and I'm not alone. Everybody's got something. Everybody's got something.
Yeah.
This world in this life, you get dealt something that you got to deal with. So the way that opened itself to me was, I remember I was mopping a floor, and part of my work to keep this part of my little thing there was mopping a floor at 4 to 5 in the morning. And there they said, they call it seva in Sanskrit, which means service. I think this is where it really came from. And the whole point was you can do anything with an attitude as if you're doing it for God, whatever that means to you, whatever, higher power, cosmic muffin, the something, the big idea. Well, pick your thing. But know that you're doing it for that. And then your work becomes a form of worship or practice. And you bring that to the work. The work doesn't put that into you. And that's a big idea for any of us, which is how you elevate yourself on the course of every day. We talked about this once. This guy, Joseph Campbell, who I got a chance to work with, he was one of the guys I hired when I was 24 years old running this programs for, we got this facility. Who are we going to come here? So I started to talk to the first people that came. Well, would you come back? And I didn't know about net Simone scores, but I knew that if you'd like this place, we love this place. Would you come back? I'd come back. Who would you come back for? And we got this little list. I'm on the phone calling people, and one of them was this guy, Joseph Campbell. People don't know about him. Joseph Campbell's one of my heroes. Interestingly, he wrote about the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell was a mythologist who taught at Sarah Lawrence, and his books are scholarship. I mean, he had an amazing synthetic mind of looking at different traditions, cultures, art histories, anthropologies. He had spiritualities. He had a way to look at everything. His view was that it's one thing. It's just one thing, and he called it the hero's journey. He was the guy that helped this guy. I say this every time. People don't know it. Named George Lucas finished this hopeless script, as George Lucas put it. He talked at Joseph Campbell's funeral. I have his hopeless script. And it turned into what Joe Campbell's helped, this thing called Star Wars. We've all seen that.
Yeah.
He said there wouldn't have been any Star Wars had there not been the structure and the appreciation and the story, his story, the story of her story, the story of this reluctant hero. What didn't start out that way.
Yeah.
Like the Wizard of Oz is the same story.
Yeah.
I'm not in Kansas anymore. And this is often what brings out the hero in each of us. It's not easy. Right. It's the tough stuff that makes us more who we are. It's not a climbing friend of mine who did Everest about 4 times and took our banner up on top of Everest for a little promo thing we did. Mm-hmm. His best comment to me was, remember, it's not how well you climb, it's how well you climb back. And I think that's so for all of us.
Would you say that in that hero's journey, the challenge is also what can help clarify that why?
Totally. If you don't have challenge, what's the point? This is, it's, and some of the research on leadership is about this. Jim Kouz's, Barry Posner did some of the best work on the leadership challenge instrumentation, 1 million people in the survey. and over 30 years. They were both Santa Clara professors. And I still talk to Jerry. He's just a really inspired guy who's focused on this. But one of the principles of leadership that seems unassailable is the crucible of leadership. Well, what do we know about a crucible? It's hot. It's a pressure cooker. And until you've been pressure tested, arguably, you don't know what it is that you have until you really have been put to the test. It's an idea. And only your experience is really true, or a lot of what you've experienced sticks with you most. And some of those experiences for most people are just not the most fun thing.
Yeah.
Well, we've done research on how did you get to be you? Well, somebody took a bet on me a long time ago. Somebody took a chance on me. Was that a boss? Yeah, that was a boss. Were they a good boss or bad boss? They were a great boss, but as often as not, they were tough. They were tough. They were always, they saw something in me and said, you could do or be more. And they brought that out of me, but it wasn't easy. That was always the next thing about I'm on the edge of my seat. And yet I was supported. I wasn't set up to fail. I was given the challenge. And then if I was in trouble, I knew I had backup.
Yeah.
And that mix of things is what you see in terms of good leaders who breed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just took some notes on that one. If there's some listeners, Chris, that haven't figured out or clarified that why, are there tips, tools, actions that you might suggest?
Well, there's a bunch, but a lot of it starts with know yourself. And the simplest one is to look at everything you've ever done, make a list of everything you ever did. I started doing this with a paper that I had. I had 20 jobs before I was 21 and roles that I played in working. And where I grew up, it was a city. There was a lot of things one could do, and I was motivated.
Yeah.
I like cars and they have a nice car.
Yeah.
But look at everything you ever did and ask yourself, make a list of it. What did I love about that? What did I really not like about it or hate about it? And what did I learn from it? That's using the data set from the past to say, are there certain themes of certain things you like to do? There's another tool that you can get for $15 on Amazon called calling cards. And calling cards were created based on research by John Holland about looking for fit. And it's 52 cards that are research-based that you get to sort through a couple different times to get down to which are the really essential ones. It's a fun thing to do for yourself, for your kids, with your spouse, your significant other. But it takes about 10 or 15 minutes. And as a tool, we've seen it's super intuitive. And then we have other things. We do coaching. We have some great, more analytical tools where we can really go deep because we have a coaching part of the business. But that calling cards thing for bang for the buck is pretty amazing. And it's a fun party thing. And it's great to see because it's not what you do, it's who you want to be. And who you want to be should be rooted in the things you love to do. And the formula that came out of that work that my friend Richard Leiter really advanced, that he's responsible for these cards existing. He's a super guy on purpose, is knowing your why, knowing your purpose, whether it's Simon Sinek's things, whatever it is. It's been around for a while.
Yeah.
But it's an organizing principle that's rooted in your gifts, your values, and your passions. And that's in this. You get these little cards. There's 4 cards that are the instructions. It's pretty simple. It's not tough to do. But, relatively short amount of time, it seems like it evokes not just your analytical part, but your feeling part. And those two come together in terms of getting to, if I had these 5 cards, they tell a story about who I am and how I typically naturally approach things and how I'm drawn to certain things. That's more what you're solving for in terms of your why. And, there's the old joke about, to get to the prince or princess, I guess you could, maybe there's one there, but you're just a lot of frogs. This isn't a more efficient way because believe me, there's a lot of frogs out there. So life's pretty short. So a little bit of a tool like this. And the last one that comes to mind is you really talk to some of your friends or your parents or people that know you and say, what do you see about me that you see in me that I'm good at? What do I do naturally? Yeah. What do you notice about me? My mother and I had these conversations. She was always, she was a beautiful woman. She was a great mother. You only get better one I had. That's how I feel about her. And she passed away not too long ago at 94. She was sharp as a tack to the end. Gracious, grateful. supportive, but she was smart, and she would always talk to me about, what do you like about what you're doing? What do you love about what you're doing? And if you don't like or love what you're doing, why are you doing it? Usually it's because you're biding time to figure something out, but God forbid you've gotten caught in your comfort zone. And the comfort zone is a place to watch out for. You got to get comfortable with being a little uncomfortable on the edge. There's a period when you stretch. There's a period when you consolidate. But people that know you, that are really your friends, can also be a great resource to just identify and say, well, I see you being good at these things.
Yeah.
And that's primarily where your why is.
Yeah. Beautiful. One more big question, then we'll wrap this conversation up, Chris. Going back to your consultant and the new company and bringing in empathy, when you were talking about the leadership work and getting individuals to engage in some of these candor conversations, here's my context is I'm seeing this in the trades. I'm seeing this because either I'm filtering it or it's actually happening in the marketplace. Like capitalism can have this cold dog eat dog world competition strategy, go and maximize the dollar. And I'm seeing this shift towards bringing out people's hearts and engaging the human component of it, which for a leader is being one who can hold those tough conversations, who can have that kind candor. And I think it's a little bit of a shift, if you will. So I'm kind of testing that with you and seeing if I'm hearing this correct. Like when we're going in to work with organizations, leadership, there is this important part of engaging that heart, because the strategies are almost easy. Like I can go read books or talk to people. I can find the strategy for the diet, no problem. But the follow through is really going to be in the heart and engaging humans and having alignment. True, not true parts?
There's a lot in that that's loaded. I think we're in I think that the heart of strategy is energy, and energy can be had and energy can be hard, and it's usually both and. It's got to make sense, but also I want to have a feeling of connectedness with what I'm doing. There's a lot that's been loaded upon Gen Z, millennials, about needing more, wanting more feedback and development and growth and things like that, but also really wanting more meaning in life. I mean, I'm old enough to say that the God Almighty dollar is not losing any of its influence. In terms of there's a hardball reality out there, which is you've got to produce value. If you have a business, you got to have customers. Have a business, and if you want it to sustain itself or be in a role that brings out some of your better parts, fit for purpose. Yeah. To the time trying different things to really get into things like the calling card gives you a direction where this is probably going to naturally reinforce who I want to be, whether you're old, young, or in between. COVID has skewed things, definitely, where a lot of people, the whole thing I've been following, I have a researcher that overwhelms me with really good articles. And one of the things has been the whole return to the workplace and the working remote and who wants to work virtual. Pretty significant study, which could have been predicted, but the studies in 3-4 weeks ago on thousands of workers that are still working remote. Some of this is industry specific, but what's interesting is if you had the choice to return back to the mothership and have to go to the office, those people are getting more development, more recognition, more feedback because they're within the part that's still the social circle. Yeah, they're seen and they're showing up. What's another little asterisk, which has just come recently, is that it's really not the going back to the office part that's driving people crazy. It's the damn commute. It's the how much wasted time there is to get there and get back for so many people. For them, if you're driving, it is wasted time. If you're on a train, you can actually do some work or think or relax, or get prepared. But this quest for finding meaning and heart in your work starts with you, as I'm going to suggest. And I have the unfortunate observation of seeing some younger people that are projecting out that somehow you, the company, the man, the big bad dollar person with all that wealth is supposed to do this. And that's a losing proposition. It does not happen. And there's a lot of things that happen within human resources communities and the companies that, we need to engage you better. We're not engaging you enough. But you know what? I'll be the first person to tell you, you engage yourself. No one else is going to engage you. And that's an inside out thing. That's why you know your why. That's why find fit. That's why if it's not a good fit, find a way to constructively move on and realize what you learned and gained from whatever it was you did. Because you can't learn less. It's always more. And that the better competitors that I've ever worked with, and this gets into the racing work, the car things that have been fascinating and part of.
Yeah.
One of the best competitors, and this guy won Le Mans, 24 hours of Le Mans 3 times, 24 hours of 5 times. And I interviewed him when he was retired at 60 or so. And he just made the point. He says, I've learned to train myself and I don't care what happens. Whatever it is, I will find a way to turn it to my advantage. And it was just one of those for every, if there's a silver lining to be found in anything and everything. And that's closer to a more realistic view to how I look at work.
Yeah.
Now I know we're wrapping this up. I'll close, but if this is a place to close, my time when I was scrubbing and mopping the floor in some meditation school in India is with me still today. Because I know that I'm the one here that I need to lead myself. Self-leadership may be the most important skill and message I could get to anybody, your viewers or listeners. You're here to lead this piece. You are the owner, operator of this piece. And there's this thing out there that's called reality. And you may want to morph a version of reality that you think is the one that's right for you. And God love you for road testing that and seeing how it works, because reality has its rules, especially around business, around money. And I will tell you this, that if you haven't developed a work ethic yet, find how to do it. Because I see some people that, for whatever reason, developmentally, they think something's supposed to come to them, or they don't think you have to work. And let me tell you something, when I go to Asia and I go to China and I go to other parts of the world, and I see how engaged, fully self-motivated, that you are not going to outwork a number of the people. And you may think you want to put in a 7 or 8 or 4 hour work day or work week or whatever that's about. And you tell me, I'll tell you who's going to win. Yeah, every guy. It's just, knowing how to apply yourself into work hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the old saying, I don't want to sound like crass, but I remember the mountain talks. BS walks, kind of works that way. Still, it's good to know what reality is and to know your why and how your why comes to reality. So you still get to be you, because there's a lot of places. I knew that I wanted to serve and help. And at times I didn't know what my next move was, but if I could help other people or serve or do something for others as a cause, I never found that time to be a waste of time while I wonder what's coming for me next. I think, how to use, I'll use what I have. Arthur Ashe is the last thing. Arthur Ashe is a great tennis player. He died of AIDS. It was a bad transfusion. He came from nothing. And black man, amazing tennis player. And he was asked right before he died, how is it that you become great? And his comment, which I wasn't there, but they said this is what he said, was simply, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And if you have that every day, you're going to have a good day and you'll never have to worry so much about what comes tomorrow.
Yeah.
No.
Love that.
Is that good?
That's great.
That's good. Hope it's something in there is useful for someone.
Yeah. Chris, for last piece, for anybody that wants to learn a little bit more, you do have a book available. How do people connect, find you, learn more about your companies?
Pilotconsulting.com is a good place to contact me. ccappy, ccappy, first initial last name, at pilotconsulting.com. Pilot that flies consulting we do. Pilot idea was to run to help people get where they wanted to go with their bags on time and make it a good trip. That's the deal. Yeah. But ccappy at Pilot Consulting. Email is still my best. Happy to help. And the book's Driving Leaders, and it's available on Amazon. And it combines what we learned and what I learned about driving a car at speed and competition and racing and endurance racing with what it takes to be developing yourself as a good. But yeah.
Well, thank you. I'll include those links in our show notes for listeners. I encourage you to grab his book, reach out, learn more. I just want to acknowledge you for mentorship in my life, for engagement in this community. Like, I think if you've had a mission of making the world a better place, you're doing it. And I just appreciate that. So, just in closing, thank you.
Come a long way, and you're just getting warmed up.
Just
starting, man. I'm so excited you're doing that. Yeah. Good on you for doing it. Yeah. Appreciate it. Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. We count on your subscriptions, your likes, your shares, and I encourage you to do that now. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, lower right-hand button. If you're on audio, download this, share it, and we look forward to having you on the next one.